Hello, I am going to address a very controversial topic, especially for you non US people, on why the US will continue to dominate crypto despite our backward stance. Because the USA is always number one, folks, and it will be in crypto. And it's mainly because we have so much money. Like, you're probably wondering, if the U.S. is so bitchy to these people, we got Gary Gensler, we got Elizabeth Warren, we got an administration that's not too friendly towards crypto because they're just basically following what Gary Gensler and Elizabeth Warren wants. We have the Banking Association making hostile rules for crypto. Why don't crypto companies just completely bail out of the U.S.? Why do they keep going back? And it's because Americans have money, a lot more disposable income than any other country. And of course, money talks. Yes, we're really far in debt. Yes, we have a lot of credit card debt. But that's the whole point. That's why they want us to come. They want to come here because Americans are actually willing to take that credit card debt and buy crypto with it. Less now because there's a high interest rate, but just wait until that interest rate goes down. They'll continue to buy crypto with it yet again. Americans, I think, like to gamble much more than other people with money, and they have plenty of it. And the country, despite having kind of draconian crypto laws, doesn't completely ban it like China does. And Americans also have a lot more money than China. And you're thinking, oh, but the American economy is tanking. They won't have that much money for long. You're wrong. The economy is not tanking. If you look at people spending, they're spending just as much as ever. And GDP growth is positive. Inflation is coming down. And despite, what people are saying that they're having a hard time, they're buying their second Ferrari or their second BMW despite complaining. So, consumer spending is not down and stocks are going up, which means people are actually taking money to buy stocks and crypto will soon follow. We just have a lot of investment money to actually go around. And because our government isn't completely isn't totalitarian, they can't really cut us off from a lot of these investments. And they're much more interested in prosecuting the cryptocurrency companies themselves than your average investor. So Americans still actually have access to swaps and access to meme coins. And there's a lot of Americans that are very desperate taking credit card loans to buy these meme coins. And that's what these companies are actually after. They're after the money. And to be honest, out of all the world's economies, especially the developed world, which actually has money, the American economy is doing way better than almost any other economy out there. Russia's economy, out of BRICS, Russia's economy is basically crap at this point. India is doing pretty well, but Indian people per capita, they don't really have that much disposable income. And plus, Indian regulations are just as bad as US ones. Every once in a while, they're like, maybe we should ban it, maybe we should be friendly, maybe we should ban it. So their regulatory stance isn't that much better than ours. Plus, even they have 1.2 billion or 1.5 billion or however many people they have, each individual person has nowhere near the amount of disposable income as people in the United States. And accessibility is just way better in the United States still. China's economy is basically going belly up at this point. It's gotten bad enough where the government has refused to publish any numbers out of the fear that the numbers actually might get people mad. And basically they've refused to publish the numbers anymore because they don't want people to look at them. They call it a national security measure. Yeah, it's gotten that bad in China. It is actually really bad. The last numbers they published, the youth unemployment rate was up 21%. The population is actually going down and decreased by 200 billion or something in the last couple of years. And I think the truth is actually even worse than that. And they can't sustain their social programs, which they actually run on. And the youth unemployment is actually really high, not really because there's no jobs available. It's because people who graduated from universities don't want the jobs that are available. See, for the last 3 or 4 decades, China has pushed university education for engineers, to get people to work jobs in the service sector. But right now they realize they actually need people in manufacturing and agriculture. But no one that actually has an advanced degree actually wants to go work in manufacturing and agriculture because factory work, backbreaking factory work, and planting rice fields is not the ideal for a promising job for college, which parents had to actually bring their kids up for and pay for. So the kids don't want the jobs and the parents don't want them to go get those jobs. So no matter how much the country begs them to go to those jobs because they desperately need them, they're not going to go to those jobs. They would rather stay unemployed and stay at home. Now, I don't really know if that's different from the United States. Like, I know there's people that won't accept certain jobs because it's below their pay grade or whatever. But this is a big, big problem in China. Like the country itself, the administration has kind of like turned its back on service sector jobs, which pay more and basically have a higher social status. And they really are trying to push both manufacturing and agriculture, but no one wants to farm and no one actually wants to go work in a factory because labor intensive jobs are just not the preferred jobs of college graduates. So they have a huge unemployment problem. Plus, they don't have enough labor because no one actually wants to work at those jobs. And the people that are aging out, they're not being replaced by people that are kind of like aging into that age. And there's not that many people. Remember, like the flat line or the neutral like birth rate, fertility rate, has to be about 2.1 kids per couple to actually have replacement level population, which means your population doesn't shrink or grow. China's is at an abysmal 1.09. It's like half of what it needs to be. So their population could actually shrink. Their working age population could shrink by as much as 40% in the next 10 or 20 years. Now, America is actually like around that replacement level or slightly above, mainly because of immigration. And despite like how people feel about immigration, it does actually solve that population problem, and we do have enough younger people right now to actually replace the people aging out, which actually does pretty well for Social Security as well, because you need younger working age people to actually be working and pay into the system for you or whenever we retire to draw out of the system in 20 years or so. I don't know if they're going to be able to keep it up for 20 years, but for so far, like if we didn't have the immigrants and everyone, that system would be completely done by now. So China's economic system is basically on the brink, and they have like zero ways of actually fixing it. Xi Jinping can talk about all these great new measures. Yeah, they're not doing anything. Like China's economy has been turning downward for a while, and it will continue to spiral downward. It's like Japan, but on a much, much bigger scale, and the problems are catastrophically bigger because China's not as well of a developed nation as Japan is. And as for South Africa, they can't even keep the damn lights on. They have rolling blackouts for the entire country. Their grid is really awful. Their economy, not doing so well. Brazil, I think, is actually doing okay, but not great either. As for the developed countries, Western Europe, all of them have greater inflation problems and like interest rate problems than the United States. The US, despite like everything, is still doing way better than the developed world. Like maybe the US and Canada are about the same because they're like hand in hand with each other, but Europe is doing actually a lot worse. So if you're looking at US, maybe they won't have too much money next year. The rest of the world is going to have even less money. So because of that, crypto companies really want to be in the US because of Americans' willingness to spend even if they don't have any money, and because the rest of the world is going to have less money. I mean, where are you going to go to find capital? You can't find it here. If you don't find it here in the US, you're not going to be able to find it in Europe. You can't go to China and find it because China still doesn't, besides Hong Kong, they don't allow crypto. I mean, South American countries, maybe El Salvador, but the rest of them aren't really stable enough. I mean, Africa, sure, it's growing, but it's just far from being there. India, maybe, but you're not really sure about their crypto regulations either. And plus, the regular Indian citizen doesn't have nearly as much money as those in the United States. So it all comes back to the United States, and that's why these regulations are so important. And let's not forget, a lot of our smaller allied countries actually depend on the US as a model to see how their regulations are going to go. As an example, we pointed to Gary Gensler meeting up with the minister in Korea yesterday. So, if they actually come to an agreement, Korea might actually adopt America's more draconian policy, which I hopefully does not happen. The fact is, despite them saying a lot of other countries have better crypto regulations, and they do, there's no money there, and they need money to actually start up a company. And if you incorporate outside the United States, as we've seen, if you want to get actually into the US market, it's going to be a lot harder. So a lot of the time, it's just not really strategically viable for them to leave the US in the first place, then try to come back in later. So they're kind of stuck. And the companies that are outside the US also want to get in on that US money. So there's always going to be a lot of demand. So that's one of the reasons why, despite me despite me clamoring and despite me complaining that crypto is going to leave the U.S., we're going to be left behind because of our stupid policies, which is true. But on the other hand, I also know in the back of my head that I'm not really afraid that the U.S. is really going to lag behind in this because everyone still wants to be here. The market is just like really, really big. And as soon as the regulations get just a little better, it'll like blow up like crazy. And I think that will happen in 2024 and 2025, especially because we have so much leverage now with the amount of political donations that the crypto industry is actually getting and the lobbyist power that we have now. Like $76 million in lobbying per year, which is what we're actually raising, that can compete with the traditional financial market. And not to mention some of those guys like BlackRock and Fidelity are going to be on our side anyways. So I think the weight of lobbying power is slowly pulling the other way, and people like Elizabeth Warren won't be able to actually contend with such lobbying power. So I think the perspectives on crypto are going to change, and going against crypto is just not going to be a winning political strategy after a while. And I think some people are actually recognizing that. So that's why I believe America will always dominate the crypto field at this point, because we just have so much money and there's nowhere else for these other companies to actually go to get access to the capital. And because I do think the American political landscape is going to get better for cryptocurrency. So that's the news for today. Let me know what you think. Like and subscribe, hit that bell notifications button. Thank you and have a nice day.